Hello, today I'm going to demonstrate my approach to modeling a fish. This is not a step-by-step tutorial. Rather, I just want to show you my approach to a modeling problem. I'm starting with a simple polygon primitive, in this case a cylinder. I'm setting the subdivision axis to 8 and the subdivision height to 6. This will permit me to take the caps of my cylinder and make it into 4 quads. And it simplifies the geometry, giving me a good foundation to begin creating my fish. Here you see I've flattened it on the one side, and now in my side viewport I am starting to shape the fish's body, very simply using non-uniform scale. And then making some minor adjustments. And here's what my fish is looking like now. Selecting the faces at the end of my model, I'm extruding them out to start to begin to create the tail. Remember to change your viewport views, looking at top, side, front, and make minor adjustments to your mesh. Here I'm selecting some of the faces on the tail where it branches off into 2 sections. Adding some divisions to my extrude. And doing another extrude for the bottom part of the tail. And once again making some adjustments. The fish appears to have an underbite, so I'm creating that with a simple extrude and making some minor adjustments. Again, all I'm trying to do here is define the basic form of the fish. I'm not concerned with the tiny details at this point. One thing to also take note is I pressed 3 on my keyboard to look at the fish in smooth mode without actually doing a mesh smooth on my model. This gives me an approximation of what the fish will look like when I smooth it later on. Toggling 1 and 3 on your keyboard allow you to look at your mesh in those 2 different states. Here I've done a duplicate special on my fish, making it an instance. That way if I make changes to one side, they will also happen on the other side of the fish. I'm adding an edge loop to my fish to give me more geometry so that I have some faces that I can extrude to create the top fin. Throughout the process, I'm constantly making refinements to my mesh. Here I'm just slightly moving some vertices to round out the form a little bit more. I move on to one of the bottom fins. So far I've worked on the fins that are in the middle of the fish, on both the top and the bottom. What about the fins that are on the side? My approach for this is a little bit different. I select a face and I do an extrude and scale that extrude in, and then I will do a second extrude where I will pull the fin out. I'm not worried about trying to get all the detail. I'm keeping the form simple right now. As you can see, the techniques I've used up to this point have been very simple. It's simply been extrudes, insert edge loop, and then just making adjustments to the geometry in my different viewports. Please take note that I extruded these side fins straight out. I find it easier to work that way in my viewports, but then what I do is I move the pivot point of my selection and rotate it in to get more of the form that I'm looking for. And then once again I make some adjustments to the mesh. Again, I'm in smooth mode now, having pressed 3 on my keyboard. Remember that I actually have two meshes right now, a left and a right side. Here I'm deleting one side of the fish because I need to show you that there are some faces that I need to eliminate from when I've done my extrude. Otherwise those faces will be in the interior of the fish later on, and I don't want that. For symmetrical models, it really does make sense to model just one half because the other half is just a mirror. Here I have just mirrored the one side of the fish to create the other side once again, and then I've combined the two meshes and merged the vertices. So now I have a single mesh. At this point, I pretty much have the foundation of my fish done. I thought it might be nice to define the eye. So I created a sphere, and in its inputs I change its subdivision axis and subdivision height, just as I had done with the cylinder earlier. Please take note that the subdivision axis was set to 6. I did this for a reason, which will become apparent very soon. Placing the eye roughly in place. And moving the geometry on the fish to conform more to the geometry of the eye. I'm creating a space where I'm going to place the eye. I delete the faces on the fish where the eye is going to be. I combine the two meshes, and then I bridge the gap between them. This is why I set my subdivision axes to 6, because I knew I would have 6 edges that I would need to bridge for the eye geometry. Once again, I've deleted half of my fish because I don't want to have to recreate the eye for the right side. I might as well mirror it over to the other side. I mirror it, combine the meshes, and merge the vertices. And that's how I modeled my fish. Here I'm moving on to the UV workflow, which I'm not going to go into detail in this video. I'll leave that for a later video. But let me just summarize my workflow here. I do a planar projection, I cut edges, I unfold the UVs, and then I place them in the square texture space, trying to utilize the texture area as efficiently as possible. Again, please don't take this demonstration as a step-by-step tutorial on how to model a fish. Modeling is problem solving. When you need to model something, you're confronted with a problem, and then you have to come up with your own solutions to that problem. What I hope I've accomplished here is that I've given you some insight into how I would tackle this problem. Here's a list of some of the basic tools and techniques I used for this video. Nothing fancy. Thanks for watching.